Alrighty guys, so let's go around the room and say one thing about Deadpool and Wolverine. Spoiler free, of course.
I love the action.
Oh. And you?
So many cameos.
Oh, great. Oh, my turn? Okay. The humor didn't really work for me. Okay. Calm down. Okay, I'll try again. I think that it's going to be a little overrated.
Wait, aren't critics paid by Disney?
Okay, alright. So let's get into my spoiler-free review of Deadpool and Wolverine. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're getting into my spoiler-free thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine, the third film in the Deadpool trilogy, now underneath the Marvel Studios and Disney umbrella. It's in theaters this Friday, July 26th, and yes, I screened it early as press in an AMC IMAX theater, and the bass was bassing, okay? I mean, I'm glad I brought my earplugs because it was loud, but it was awesome to see it on a big screen because it does help the movie in some areas, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. Now, the film was directed by Shawn Levy, and he is, well, he's known for working with Reynolds, but he also knows how to direct action, which we'll get into in a little bit. And the cast is stacked, of course. We have a ton of cameos. I'm not talking about any of them, but our leads are Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, or Wade Wilson himself. You have Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Logan, Jimmy, my name. And then you have Corrin as Cassandra Nova, and I did not really know that Xavier and Cassandra Nova in the comics. Okay, anyway, then we have Matthew Macfadyen as Mr. Paradox. Homeboys from Succession, that's where I know him. I mean, he's good in this movie too. Now, I have to preface this review with the fact that I'm not a fan of the first two films, and that's no secret. I don't think they're very funny, and this brand of humor doesn't work for me. But I still went in to Deadpool and Wolverine with an open mind, hoping that, hey, maybe the story will be stronger, or hey, maybe the action's even cooler and bigger. So, I don't want to spoil anything, but the summary is fairly straightforward for Deadpool and Wolverine, where Deadpool himself has to go and save his timeline, and in order to do that, he's got to find an anchor being, one of which is a Wolverine, and it happens to be this Logan he pulls out is a Logan that is dealing with a lot of grief and a lot of sadness because of his past actions that unfortunately did a lot of things to his friends in the X-Men. But that's as far as I'm gonna go. They do face adversity with Mr. Paradox and with Cassandra Nova, but it is going to be very interesting to see the audience's reaction to the story itself. And yes, we're going to talk about it here. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of movie reviews like this, hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, like this video, and get loud in the comments below, and let me know which Deadpool movie is your favorite after you watch Deadpool and Wolverine this weekend. Alrighty guys, so let's get into my positives, alright? Now, this movie is going to do a lot for a ton of moviegoers. It's going to check off boxes. If you came to Deadpool and Wolverine hoping for a happy-go-lucky movie, that's not the type of film. But if you came to Deadpool and Wolverine and said, you know what, I want to see them push the boundaries in Marvel Studios, right? They push the boundaries and then exceed them. This is the goriest, the most crude, vulgar, profane Marvel film in the MCU, and probably the most hard R film in the Disney umbrella in quite some time. I mean, this is pushing the limits, especially with what they're saying, showing, and doing. So this will be your cup of tea, or maybe your cup of rubbing alcohol if you're a certain X-Man in this movie, if you're going into it looking for all of these things. And it's also a crowd-pleasing cameo fest. So yes, there's a lot of cameos here. And yes, the cameos are fun. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes they do tend to try and mask the story and its limitations, but we'll get into that in my negatives. But for the most part, the cameos were pretty effective, I'd say, and they were fun, right? It was awesome to be next to some of my fellow critics and my friend, and we said, yo, is this really happening? And it worked. Now, I don't know how much rewatchability this movie has, because when you know who's coming out, it doesn't necessarily make you so surprised anymore, but it was pretty surprising to see it for the first time. Now, the one thing that the Deadpool movies always hit the mark on for me was the action, and hey, Shawn Levy knows how to direct some action, because in Deadpool and Wolverine, it's a very well choreographed film whenever there's hand-to-hand combat sequences, big vehicular warfare, and also when you're fighting with one another, yeah, I'm talking Deadpool and Wolverine's fights together, are insane, you guys. There's one moment in a Honda Odyssey where they're fighting, and I had to imagine that this was a difficult scene to shoot. Where do you place the cameras? How do you even choreograph the fight in a Honda Odyssey? Okay, and yes, it's a part of a running joke in the film, one of the few that works for me, but I actually thought that this was a cool example of how great the Deadpool movies are when it comes to action, because Deadpool himself, the merc with a mouth, in the comics always had some really cool action sequences, and in the movies, you know, he doesn't disappoint. And in Deadpool and Wolverine, they continue to carry that mantle forward. So if you're worrying, are they going to desensitize the action? Let's just say they very quickly disregard that opinion and tell you that no, we're going to make it just as gruesome as you remember Deadpool 1 and 2, and then we're going to put NSYNC in the background. That's all I'll say, but man, it was really fun in the opening sequence. It set the tone, and the action just continued to be high octane from start to finish. And this movie definitely doesn't work as well if it wasn't for Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds having a very natural chemistry together on screen. Individually, I don't necessarily think they're amazing in this movie, but together, it's fun to see them riff off of one another, and this variant of Logan is definitely a lot angrier than you would expect. Now, fans of the film Logan, James Mangold's Logan, you're gonna think, okay, we're used to this old man type of grumpy style, but he's angrier than you would imagine in Deadpool and Wolverine. So I like their chemistry together. They were good, but I found solo performances outside of our two leads to be even better than what Hugh and Ryan put out on display. So let's start with Emma Corrin as Cassandra Nova. She was excellent, I thought, in this role, even though I believe she deserved more substance than what she was given from the script. She was the butt of a lot of jokes, especially when it comes to fingers in the head. I'm not going any further because it sounds weird to say it out loud now, but Cassandra Nova as a character is someone I did not know anything about, like at all, y'all. And Emma Corrin does a very good job at being swift in her dialogue. She's quick, she's slick-tongued, and she just does not skip a beat when she's with Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds on screen together. I wish we got more of this character, though. In a way, at the end, they sort of make Cassandra Nova a generic type of villain. I don't love that either, but Emma Corrin did a really standout job. And then another standout for me was Matthew Macfadyen as Dr. Paradox, or Mr. Paradox. I'm giving him a doctorate, who am I? He's incredibly over the top in some moments, but his zany attitude in this role is so fun, especially because I've only really seen him in Succession, and that's a role most fans are probably going to know him for. I also love his interactions with Ryan Reynolds, and they established that very early on when Ryan visits the TVA, so there's a lot of good in the supporting actor department. And like I mentioned earlier, cameos were awesome, right? So I'm very happy with the cameos we got. I'll just say that. And there's one cameo in particular where it worked because it was a bit that they were playing to. Okay, so let's move on. I do appreciate that this movie felt a tad bit more balanced than Deadpool 2 because I believe that there was a dramatic element lacking in Deadpool 2, and in Deadpool and Wolverine we do get a decent dose of drama. Especially when Logan and a certain someone are having a conversation together. I think it's at nighttime, and it really worked for me because of a previous film that establishes a certain relationship, and I thought that the execution worked when it came to the drama in this movie. Now, did the story always deliver? Absolutely not. So I think this is a good time to let you know that if you haven't already noticed, those are all the positives, and now it's time to get to the negatives. So yes, I'm mixed on this movie, and to kick off the negatives, again, the humor, it just still doesn't work for me. Now, I laughed more in Deadpool 3 than I did laugh in Deadpool 1 and 2. So that's like a plus, but the minus is that Deadpool and Wolverine's humor, it's still just so low-hanging fruit to me. I don't know why people find it funny. I guess I can understand if you enjoy the profane approach to the humor, but there's so many running jokes that just fall completely flat for me. You know, just to start, the Marvel Jesus thing that they teased in the trailer, that is a running joke from the very beginning of the movie all the way to the third act, and it is annoying to me. First of all, it's blasphemous, so I don't agree with it on a personal note. So I figure, okay, they're gonna say it in the first act, that's it. But no, they continue to allude to it and hit you over the head with this joke, and it's not funny to me at all. So you have that, and then this is gonna make me sound like a grouch, but there's a running joke with Dogpool. I don't get the allure here. Like, it just added nothing to the movie for me at all. Oh, and there are a lot of overdone jokes about sex as well. So if you haven't already caught on, your mileage will vary if you're not a fan of this type of humor. Now, when it comes to the story itself, I guess I want to lead with this. You definitely feel that this movie was written by 5 screenwriters. I'm not joking. I saw that in the opening credits, and I looked around. Did no one else see this? 5 screenwriters for a single film? You're bound to have a lot of conflicting ideas, and the themes were not always consistent, but it tracks because you can't have that many cooks in the kitchen. I do think that the story itself overall is very weak. The cameos and those like awe-inspiring moments with the blood and the gore and the crude jokes tries to overshadow what is a very poorly written script. Like, it does not do anything for me. I mean, in moments where I felt maybe, okay, we're getting to a point where I can sort of connect, they immediately joke, and then they immediately go and they start shooting and slashing and killing. So I don't think the movie itself is supposed to be taken seriously, and I get that. But don't then try to introduce dramatic elements and then go half measure, because that's also incredibly dull and distracting for me. And if you're coming to this movie for an awesome Wolverine story, I think you're going to be really disappointed, because I don't believe this iteration of Wolverine was very well done. Again, fell flat. The costume is awesome. The yellow and then the mask, it's cool, okay? That's very well done and it's very well orchestrated. The costuming in general was awesome in this movie. But the story for Logan, like, you're introducing so much between even conversations with Cassandra Nova and Wolverine, but then you just don't really do much with it. It's a lot of tell not show. So yeah, you have the general idea thrown out there to the audience, but then you depart and you go elsewhere. And they try to wrap it up with a nice bow at the end, but I'm seeing through that. And it stinks, because we know that Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is excellent. I know this. He's an awesome portrayal of Wolverine in live action. He can bring the heat, but here it just didn't necessarily work. But I do blame the script more than the performance. And then, of course, with any Deadpool movie, you understand there's going to be needle drops that will make you laugh or make you maybe cry. Who knows? But I laughed and then did a mini clap with 2 needle drops. So the rest of the needle drops were so weird to me. They played an AC/DC song in the beginning of the film. I think it was in the first act when they first get to the void. And it's so choppy. Like, even the cuts in the song, I'm thinking, how did this get past the editing bay? You know, who signed off on that? But it didn't work for me. Most of the needle drops just didn't work for me, but there was a Goo Goo Dolls needle drop and there was an NSYNC needle drop, and I'll never hear or see Bye 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 again in the same way. And yeah, Goo Goo Dolls, I'm a fan, so it was nice to hear that song play, and I even tapped my friend on the shoulder and said, I can't believe the Goo Goo Dolls are in the MCU. But it was not as fun in the music department, especially with the score, which is totally unimpactful, by Rob Simonson, who worked with Shawn Levy on the Atom Project, right? So I was hoping for some sort of continuity and consistency here. It just didn't really hit for me. So overall, you guys, I gotta say, I know that Deadpool and Wolverine is gonna make a ton of money. In my opinion, shouldn't dissuade you if you are a fan of Deadpool 1 and 2. If you love those movies, you're going to be over the absolute moon with Deadpool and Wolverine, especially because Wolverine is such a beloved character in the Marvel Universe. I just wish the execution was better in this 3rd installment. Is it the most entertaining movie of the bunch? Absolutely. It's actually one that I would regard a lot higher than the other 2 Deadpool movies it just doesn't always work for me. There's a weak story, the performances aren't always captivating, and I will say the action, while it is so fun and in your face and there's some awesome choreography, it's everything surrounding that just doesn't work well. So for as long as the film was, I was hoping to get a little bit more of a layered approach to telling this story between Logan and Wade. Instead, we do just get your typical superhero fare, cameo fest, and they make jokes about Disney, Marvel, and those cameos, but this movie does it at the same time. So it's like you're making fun of it, but you're also doing exactly what you're making fun of. So that sort of meta humor works if it is effective, and here it just paints a larger picture of maybe what could be an issue moving forward for the MCU, which is let's just bring in nostalgic cameos for fans and they'll overlook the other weaker spots of this film. Yeah, but not me. So if I even have to rate this movie, it's a very low 3.5 out of 5 Deadpools or Dogpools or Ladypools or Nice Pools. But I do think that this movie does a decent amount of work to try and separate itself from the other two while still holding on to the charm that fans will come to expect and love from a Deadpool live action film. So again, if you love Deadpools 1 and 2, you're gonna love this movie. For me, it's all right, but it's gonna be a tad bit overrated. That's my prediction when it hits theaters this weekend. So when it does, let me know down below in the comments, because y'all, that's all I got. That's my real review of Deadpool and Wolverine. So if you enjoyed this, hit the big red button below. If not, you're gonna make Dogpool sad. And hey, let me know. Do you think you'll be more excited now after hearing this review or not? Alrighty, y'all. Well, I've got people with pitchforks outside that are most likely hearing every bit of this review, so I'm gonna go address them, and I'll be back. I'll call my friend Logan. Alrighty, y'all. Again, thanks so much for watching. God bless you guys, and I'll catch you at the next screening.